What's happening, people? I'm DJ Sketch, and I'm back with episode 2 of Rail Shooters You Should Try, this time on the Xbox 360 and Nintendo Wii. Let's get into it.
Let's just do this and get out of here.
First up, we have Child of Eden. This was released in June of 2011 on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. This is one of the few Kinect games that really gets my attention because it's actually quite unique. This is actually created by Tetsuya Mizuguchi, also responsible for Rez and Lumines. This is a very interesting game considering the story, even though there's not much of it. Basically, you are trying to rescue Lumi, which is the first human that's born in space that conveys her thoughts through sound and music. And she's trapped in the internet, which is what they call Eden, because everything has been overrun by viruses. So you're more or less going in and trying to exterminate all the viruses so you can free her. And the object of the game is to try to link up as many consecutive kills as you can. You have a screen clearing euphoria attack, which comes in handy when in a pinch. But mostly you want to stay on the beat of the songs. If you're familiar with the tracks by Genki Beat, the game will be a little bit easier for it, but otherwise, the first few levels start out simple enough, kind of get you used to the mechanics, but then later on in the game they start throwing some pretty crazy combos at you and like walls you have to get through, which you'll see parts of in the gameplay that I have recorded here. But this is honestly one of the most visually eye-catching games I've played in a long time, and had I known this was a spiritual successor to Rez all these years, I would have picked this up on day one. I didn't play it with Kinect, because I don't have one, but I did play it with a controller and that works well enough. It's only 3 buttons, so it's easy to manage. You know, you get used to it after a while. At first, there's a lot to keep up with on screen, but that's kind of the appeal of it. There's just so much going on and it's so trippy looking, honestly. It's very colorful, has a lot of flashing images, it's definitely seizure material, but it's so much fun, especially if you start getting the hang of it, and then the music will keep you going throughout. So, if you have a 360 or a PlayStation 3, I mean, you can play it with the Kinect, or you can play it without the Kinect. It works about the same, and both work great, as far as I've heard. So, give this a shot. This is a really good one. I highly recommend this one, especially since it's kind of like off the beaten path that most 360 games you'll come across.
Are you okay?
Maxine, God, it's good to hear you. Things are pretty bad right now.
Next up, I want to talk about Dead Space Extraction. This is actually a pretty scary game, I have to admit. Probably one of the scarier games I've played on the Wii. And this is actually a prequel of sorts as well. It happens before the events of Dead Space 1, obviously, but also it shares the same timeline with Dead Space Downfall. This was released in September of 2009, published by EA, and also developed by Visceral Games, which later on will become more well known due to the Battlefield Hardline. In this one, you play as Sam Caldwell, and you're along with a group of miners, and each one of your teams slowly starts hallucinating and losing their minds, and also, that's just a little side plot, because also the entire colony that you're actually going throughout the game is infested with necromorphs, which if you played any of the other Dead Space games, you're already quite familiar with those. And this one, as opposed to the third-person views that the series is popular for, is all in first person, so you kind of see everything close up, and it's interesting. And at first this was a Wii exclusive, but it was later released on the PS3 along with the limited edition of Dead Space 2. And for whatever reason, we didn't get this on 360, even though it would have been a great addition, I'd say. And this one, it's not all just shooting and severing limbs and all that stuff. There's a little more to it. With this, there's actually some puzzle elements thrown in, also very similar to how the third-person games work. So you're going to have to actually use some thought and a little bit of deductive reasoning to get through some of these sections, because it's not all just guns blazing, just shoot everything that moves, even though that's the majority of the game. But this one's a lot of fun, and also has some pretty genuine jump scares. And I got a little bit more than halfway through the game when I was making this review. And, this is something I'm definitely going to sit back and play. I'll probably finish this and also try to record it as well. But this one, especially for the Wii, I got this for $2. And that's honestly probably one of the best buys I've had in quite a while. So definitely, I really can't recommend this game enough, especially if you enjoy rail shooters. This is honestly one of the best that I played on the Wii. So, if you have a shot, if you have the time, if you have the time, and also if you can find a copy of this, definitely give it a go. This is honestly probably one of the better Wii games that I own personally, and I highly suggest it. Try it too.
Can't you go any faster? They're still coming. Hurry up! Faster, damn it! There's dozens of them.
It's done.
Alright, and lastly we're going to talk about Sin and Punishment Star Successor, which is actually the sequel to the original Sin and Punishment that was on the Nintendo 64, also released by Treasure.
What do we do now?
Now we run like our lives depend on it, because they do.
This is honestly one of my favorite developers, hands down, because pretty much every game they've ever released, I've enjoyed immensely. This one especially, considering the whole story behind it. So this one is sort of also much like Child of Eden, was a hybrid rail shooter, considering that most rail shooters only go forward and side to side. This one really goes all over the place, which is something I didn't actually realize until I finally got to sit down and play this, because it took me years to actually get a copy of this game. This was released in June of 2010. So actually this came out a year after Dead Space Extraction. But also about this game, the story I really won't get into too much, because honestly you really won't pay attention to the story very much, because honestly you're going to be just trying to stay alive. But the main character, Issa Joe, and Iron are more or less your two main protagonists. And there's actually a bit of a catch with using these, because Issa Joe does not have auto lock on, whereas Iron does. And for this gameplay, I used Issa just so I can actually get the full experience of the game, and also going throughout, you'll start out going through corridors. So at first it seems pretty standard. It's almost like this one reminds me a lot of Space Harrier, which is what really drew me to it when I first saw this at a GameStop in a demo section a long time ago, back when this was a brand new game. And I tried playing it then. I was like, oh my god, what do you do? But then compared to playing it now, I realized there was so much that I was missing, because you have ultra power-ups, you have your melee attacks, and also you have your free-floating reticle where you can just pretty much shoot everything on the screen. And there's points where the screen is populated with so many enemies that I'm quite frankly amazed that the Wii can handle this, because there's a lot of stuff that's going on in this game more often than not. And you'll go through each level, which of course in true Treasure fashion, they get very difficult very quickly actually. And you'll go through each one, and you'll have your, again, sub-bosses on some levels, and you'll have your main boss at the end. And stage 4 is basically where I couldn't get any farther, because they're going on water, and that main boss is really difficult. But this game, honestly, I really can't praise this one enough. This is, again, in my opinion, the best rail shooter you're going to find on the Wii. Yeah, I stand by that. I was going to say possibly on any console, but I'm not sure if I can go as far as to say that. But as far as the Wii, definitely. And if you find a copy of this in the wilds, I actually found this on Amazon for $13, and since I had a gift card, I got it for free, which is awesome. And typically you'll find this for about $10 to $15, sometimes less if you get lucky. So definitely, if you have a Wii and see this game, Sin and Punishment Star Successor, just kicking around your game shop, or even just buy it online, it's pretty simple. I highly suggest you do so. And I want to thank you guys again so much for checking out this video, along with episode 1 of Rail Shooters You Should Try. And we'll try to do another one of these when I can find 3 more games to cover. So, until next time, thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.